Okay, this video is about a technique for blending, and it's called dry brushing. I really like this technique to do those subtle, kind of like feathery changes, or those kind of like ombre looking changes in a color. And I will say the technique is super easy. Like, there's really nothing to it. But the hardest part is really just kind of finding the touch for it, and that just takes practice, okay? So it's called dry brush for two reasons. For one, your paper already should have a layer of solid paint on it, like a base coat. So if you're doing like a sky or something, you'll do like a light color that you saw, and I told y'all, I'm like, just fill in the whole thing. And then you'll come back with a color that will be on top that's a little bit darker, that you'll kind of want to make the edges look blurry, or you'll want to fade it or something like that. So it's dry brush technique, because this is dry and this is dry, my brush. Now, what kind of brush? You want to get one that is kind of looks like a broom, like they're kind of stiff. This is that real hog hair. It's not the ones that look real swoopy and like synthetic. Those are good for laying down this flat, smooth paint, but for doing something kind of like this, you want one of these that's kind of more coarse, okay? So dry brush, and I've got a dry area right here. You never want to dry brush on top of white paper, because when you're dry brushing, you're basically putting down a really thin little see-through layer of paint, and the whole point is to be able to see the color underneath it coming through. So if I put a see-through thin layer of paint over top of this, it would just look bad, because there'd be like white paper coming through it. So never dry brush over the white paper, it's only over a color. So first thing you do is you mix up the color you want to dry brush on top of, and this part's very important. In fact, well, I'll just try. In your palette, if you've got like a big blob of it, you want to take some out, not with this brush, with a different brush. You want to take some out and kind of smooth it out onto a flat area, because the idea is to be able, my paint dried up a little bit. Oh man, hang on. The point is to be able to like just barely get the little tiptoes of the brush covered in paint. Do you see how very little paint I have on my brush? Well, guess what? That's actually too much. So a lot of people like to keep a paper towel right here to kind of dab off that excess. Let me just make sure I got a good solid amount on my brush. And then when you get ready, you're gonna basically kind of like lightly dust, sort of like over that color, over the paper. And I know you're probably thinking right now, like, she's not even doing anything. I know that's what you're thinking. But look, you can barely see where it's starting to kind of come in and fade. And you'll notice I'm kind of sort of going in different directions. You're just kind of, I don't know, scumbling it on there. And sometimes you might wish that it was a darker application. Whoops, sorry. So you could just go back and load up again, get some more paint, and make sure you have a good amount. And then, oh my gosh, my brush is so long. Look how long it is. It keeps hitting the thing, going clank, clank. Okay. All right, so you can add a little bit more on there, and you can tell, ooh, I went way too fast. Look how much paint I had on my brush. And it totally made it into like a clear shape. It didn't give me that like blurry edge or anything. So look there, because I'm sitting there talking, worried about how long my brush is. I showed y'all what not to do. Okay, I'm gonna try to go a little bit darker so that y'all can see it a little bit easier. So I got some of that straight up reddish color, and remember, it's all about the amount that we have on here. Let's see, I'll do it here. And you want to take the edges of your brush and just basically kind of like lightly dust it on there. And I'm using a huge brush. Oh my gosh, this brush is so long. And it's like super fat because I didn't have a smaller one at the house. If I had a smaller one, it would be a lot easier to kind of show you more in detail. Oh, do y'all hear Ozzy? Ozzy back there. The only thing you have to worry about that gets kind of weird, like if I wanted to add another, a little bit more of that on there, I could go get another coat or whatever and come back on top. But the more you touch this paint, or that, let's see, the more you touch the area that you're trying to put the dry brush on, the more mad the paper gets at you for a minute. You know, as soon as that paint gets on there, the paper is soaking it up and it's immediately trying to dry. So there might be a time where you've been dry brushing in one area for so long that all of a sudden it starts to do this weird bald spot thing. Like it'll literally start taking paint off and make a bald spot. And you can go back and get more paint all you want, but it'll just keep being like a bald spot, a bald spot. It's like it almost like won't take paint. It's weird. All that is it means that the paper's trying to dry and it's getting aggravated because you keep dusting over top of it. So all you have to do is give it a break and let it completely dry, and then you can come back over, you know, do another layer of dry brushing once that paper's finished drying.